All right. Well, it looks like Ron DeSantis continuing his free fall in the polls. Now the question is, going to drop out or not? Some people are saying that. Let's look at it. Katie Pavlich is here, editor at townhall.com and Fox News contributor. Mark Simone, WR radio show host, and Kellyanne Conway, former counselor to President Trump, president of KA Consulting, Fox News contributor, and author of the excellent book, Here's the Deal. I want to put up on the full screen what Trump wrote a day or two ago on his Truth Social. Can we put this up? Ron DeSanctimonious is getting absolutely demolished for yesterday's performance in New Hampshire. No crowds, no enthusiasm, no interest. His campaign is in total disarray. He's hurting himself very badly for 2028. See, loyalty does matter with patriots. That's tough stuff. Mark Simone, I want to go to you on this. We talked about this at dinner last night. It's tough stuff, but it may be accurate stuff. And in your judgment, with the polls shifting, I mean, Vivek Ramaswamy is now, guys, 10% closing in on DeSantis. DeSantis keeps falling. Is DeSantis going to be out of the race? What's your view? Serious question.
Listen, we like the guy. We got to do an intervention. We got to tell him, you're 44 years old. You're way too early. Wait 10 years when you're in your 50s and do it. He doesn't have the campaign skills. He is, talk about failure to launch. He's just sinking. And you're right, Vivek will pass him pretty soon. And I don't think he has to drop out. He's just going to fade out and just wither and die on the vine there.
Kellyanne, what do you think about that?
Look, I've been long on the record that he should have waited to run, not just because of his age, but because he has a really big job that he just got reelected to do as governor of our third largest state, got reelected by 20 points. A lot of pressure from media for him to run. When the mainstream media tells you which Republican can win, run the other way. That's number 8. Number 1, and most importantly, is so many donors convinced Ron DeSantis, you're the guy. You can beat Trump. You can beat Biden. They're lovely people in life. They're successful people, but they've never made a penny of their $1 billion giving political advice. I think DeSantis is ruining himself a little bit for 2028. It is, quote, early. Yes, he has a ton of money, raised $20 million this last quarter. That ain't nothing, Larry. He's got Robert Bigelow, one donor, giving another $20 million just to a super PAC. But if you don't have the skills, if you don't have the connective tissue with the people, and you've got this juggernaut called the former president of the United States as the front runner, who, by the way, is sending the Truth Social post about DeSantis being a disaster on the campaign trail in New Hampshire from Bedminster. Trump is the only one who didn't campaign on July 4th because he figures, I'm the front runner, I don't need to. Maybe part of the same reason he's thinking of not going to the first debate.
Katie Pavlich, I'm going to ask you how you see it, but I want to note the rise of Vivek Ramaswamy, who is not going to be president, okay? I'm just going to say that. He's a great kid, smart, but he's running an issues campaign. Yeah. He's running an ideas-oriented campaign. Right. And I think people appreciate that. It's the exact opposite of DeSantis, which Kellyanne was the one who said to me, the trouble with donors is they give money first and then they talk to the candidate. They ought to talk to the candidate first. You've had this story wired pretty damn well. But you see what I'm saying? I'm going to go to Trump on the issues in a second. But isn't that DeSantis' downfall? He's been running this. I know he declared a month ago, but he's been running for over a year and he still has no issues.
Well, you'll notice that Vivek's strategy has been not to go after President Trump on anything. Yes. And therefore, Trump has not gone after him. So he's avoided that firestorm.
Trump likes him.
And he is running an ideas campaign talking about what America is, and people like what he has to say. But with the DeSantis versus Trump situation, you know, Trump has done this before. He's been to New Hampshire. He's been to Georgia. He's been to Arizona. He's been on the campaign trail. There's unfinished business there. And DeSantis has had to start over. And even though the policies implemented in Florida as governor could absolutely be beneficial to the country, especially when you're running against Joe Biden, he has to start over and sell himself as a national candidate when he really is still at the state level. And so President Trump has the benefit of doing this again and having all that groundwork already ready to go and the infrastructure in place to have a different strategy, of course, in places like Pennsylvania and Michigan, Wisconsin, versus 2020, but he's been there before, and DeSantis is starting over.
I want to play one of the clips. I want to play a bit from the CNN town hall debate or whatever it was, because I think it was one of the turning points in the early stages of this campaign. and help knock DeSantis out completely. Can we play this CNN town hall clip? Here it comes. Please take a listen.
If elected president again, what is the first thing you would do to help bring down the cost to make things more affordable?
Drill, baby, drill. We have more liquid gold under our feet than any other nation. And these stupid fools ended it. We created the greatest economy in history. A big part of that economy was got you the biggest tax cuts in the history of our country, bigger than the Reagan cuts, bigger than any. And also, Caitlin, as you know, we got the biggest regulation and regulatory cuts. This place was rocking.
This place was rocking. I'm just saying, I don't know how 3.5 million people saw it on CNN. God knows how many millions and millions saw it on YouTube and other places. What I'm suggesting is that was a brilliant answer, okay? He was at the top of his game. Not only did he get the energy dominance in drill, baby, drill, but he got tax cuts and regulatory cuts. You heard what the crowd started roaring for him. I think that will look back. That was a knockout blow, Mark Simone, right there, because of the issues grasp, his timing and presentation, and the fact that Republican and independent-leaning voters were with him.
Yeah, and also he's got something going for him. He's one of the few candidates who can make that kind of a wild claim, and he's actually done it. He's done it. He's a proven success at that stuff. That's the difference between him and DeSantis. He's got a story to tell Donald Trump, and he's actually done it. DeSantis has done state-level stuff, never run a national economy, never run a foreign policy. And you got DeSantis with some credentials, no personality. You got Vivek with a ton of personality. I don't know about the credentials, but the personality is going to win this. And Trump's got it all, everything.
By the way, Vivek was a nationally ranked tennis player. That's a big plus for the presidency. I mean, I was just a little small college tennis player. Vivek really played the whole tour. But Kellyanne, going back to that CNN, now, if you look at Trump's speeches, even the Bedminster speech after the arraignment in Miami, okay? And that was a rough day for him, all right? He gets up there and gives, I thought, one of the best speeches of his career. And, of course, he tries to answer all the questions from the arraignment and the indictment. But he also had an economic segment in there. He had an energy segment in there. I mean, and he was very temperate. That, too, I think, was a knockout punch because nobody could duplicate that.
Larry, that town hall did away with Ron DeSantis and Chris Licht from CNN in one fell swoop.
Good point.
And by the way, what you saw in the town hall and just pointed out almost 2 months later is what many Americans saw. What the mainstream media got out of it was Trump just implicated himself on this, and what's her name who doesn't know the year something happened to her just benefited from that. What people heard was a former president who got us energy independence, the first time we were net exporters of natural gas and oil in our nation's history, vowing to do it again. Drill, baby, drill started with Newt Gingrich in about 2008, but you couldn't get John McCain to say it as nominee, couldn't get Mitt Romney to say it as nominee. You got Donald Trump to do it as president. One note on Vivek Ramaswamy, who I do know. He's running a great campaign, and he's kind of boxed out DeSantis's best calling card, which was the woke stuff. Vivek does it in a way where he's this never-ending TED Talk, and he basically stands up and says, I'm an Indian-American billionaire who is against affirmative action, as is the Supreme Court now, is against preferences, and he's ubiquitous. He's made himself ubiquitous. He's kind of a happy warrior. And unlike Mitt Romney, Vivek is very proud of his wealth and the American dream. Mitt Romney used to borrow somebody's khakis and parachute into the Midwest to give a speech.
And Katie, we don't have much
lives
time,
in the Midwest.
but I wanted to just give you the last word on this. Vivek is like passing Pence. He's passing all these other candidates who've been around forever. I'll give you the last word.
Look, like I said, like him, he's talking about America and the way that a lot of people want to see it. They don't want to see people pitted against each other. I think people are really tired of being cut into groups like the left has done for so long. And the Supreme Court, as Kellyanne mentioned, has decided that we are going to go back to the principles of the country and judge each other based on character, not on skin color. And he has brought that message to the forefront. And he's done it in a way that he can stay off of Trump's bad side while also rising in the polls. So we'll see where that takes him. But maybe Treasury Secretary.
Trump loves him.
And he's fun. He's a lot of fun. Trump's a lot of fun. DeSantis,
genuine.
No fun.
And by the way, they're all running against Biden. Eye on the prize, everyone. Biden has the job. He doesn't deserve the job. He shouldn't even want the job.
Katie Pavlich, Mark Simone, Kellyanne Conway. Terrific stuff.